Hello. Good evening. Good evening, dear people. Hope everybody's doing well. I am going to reset my screen. Give everybody time to jump in with me tonight. Make sure everybody has a chance to log in. Hello. Working through technology here. Let's see. I see one person probably through YouTube. I'll give it a few minutes because I've been having some issues using the streaming device on Facebook. So I may just go awesome. When you jump in, let me know where you're from, what city, who's viewing from where. Okay, this should be going here on YouTube and Facebook. Well, for some reason, let's see. Let me make sure I'm not the only one. Um, there we go. Have a little bit of delay, but hopefully you guys are seeing me here on Facebook pretty soon. Like and share, share and like. Yeah, okay, we're live. I think I'm give it a few more minutes. Hello, mother. Like and share, share and like. I'm going to go between two devices for those of you that are on YouTube through Restream. For those of you that are on Facebook, let me know which city you are viewing from. What city you're viewing from, and feel free to tell me what platform you're on too, because clearly that makes a difference. I know there's a bit of a delay between the two devices. And if you happen to catch this in the replay, you'll catch it on my YouTube channel. Just write replay, and that way I'll know who's actually viewed after the live. Hey, the Lou, and guess what? 314 is this weekend. It'll be my first 314 ever, actually. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, it is 6:04. I'll contemplate actually kicking this back 30 minutes to give people time to get in from work, kind of get ready to just unwind for the evenings here on Thursdays. But I'll share a little bit more about some upcoming logistical changes and how we can spend some more time together at the end of the broadcast. I'm going to jump right in. As you come in, just let me know where you're from, what city you're in. Say hey. And if you catch this on the replay, don't forget to type replay. Hey, thanks for joining. This is DMC, the Impact Experience Podcast. We are, I think, winding down what looks like a very impactful topic from the hustle culture to grace. If you haven't caught the videos, they are stored on my YouTube channel, DMC, the Impact Experience podcast channel. You'll be able to find all of the uploads there for series the culture from grace, from the hustle culture to grace. I think there are about 3 or 4 uploads there, and then this will show up there as well. And I really want to take these opportunities to go live after we've had some time in one topic area so I can engage you, those of you who are watching the broadcast, the podcast through live and or the uploads. I want to engage you in the conversation tonight. This is my very first series, so we'll learn while doing, but I'm really excited to see where your thought process has been since we've had this discussion. We opened up the very first broadcast, really kind of talking about the performance behavior, which is recognized as a societal mindset that is widely known as the hustle culture. I was talking to my sister today and I said, I didn't even know that that really was a thing until I got into preparing and studying and reading various articles and books, mostly through the American Society for Stress and Anxiety. There's a lot of research around that. But I didn't know hustle culture was a real thing. I just felt it. I felt it. Kept hearing this word, kept ruminating in me, and out of it has come this very interesting conversation about what has us motivated, where our motivations are, what is the impact of those motivations. And so you'll really have to go back because I don't want to retrace a lot of that, but I do want to set up tonight's call with this question. So the question I have on the table tonight is your exhaustion related to your schedule, or is your exhaustion that sheer fatigue you feel, that running on fumes, that running on empty, is that due to your schedule, or is that due to your psychological frame, your physiological nervous system, your theological frame, and really kind of your environmental factors or frames that you were raised in, you experienced um, through life's traumas, experiences. Where did this drive come from? It's a good place to pause to give you some opportunity to think about it. But we've talked about some core reasons in the previous broadcast, and for fear of losing time, so because I want to definitely shift into grace, I don't want to restate it all, but I think it's important that we pause to just say, is any of this information that we've been talking about, this conversation, kind of uncovered some things, shed light on some things? You can give me a yes, maybe, I don't know. You can give me a it sure did, it didn't. And let's kind of do a chat testimonial. If from hustle culture to grace has started to shed some light on what's motivating this place of exhaustion. Because what I found out, it has very little to do with my schedule, but it's how I'm using my schedule, what I'm appropriating to my schedule and my time. So, quick pause here. Let me see who's in here. Got my sister. I saw mom. And if it's just the few of us, absolutely no problem. I'm going to keep moving forward because I don't despise the day of small beginnings. This is a great conversation for us to have within our family structure, because a lot of what's been pushing and motivating us, you might hear me talk about my prelude of the Lucy May story. So I grew up in a time with my grandparents who were born in 1925, and they are what is recognized as the traditionalists or the veterans. They were children of sharecroppers, um, parents, and their parents were descendants of slaves. My grandmother and my grandfather were conditioned with the push to work constantly, to always be on. And when we were growing up, even though we went to school Monday through Friday, Saturday was not an off day for us. We had to wake up at the same time. My grandmother would be clanging in the kitchen, vacuum cleaners would be going, gospel music would be playing in the background. We learned early on that there was no pause. And so it framed in us this consistency with filling our time up with work, finding something to do. There was always something to do. If we were going to school Monday through Friday and then doing chores on Saturday, then going to church on Sunday, there really was no downtime. And that's just one example of one of the root causes that created this productivity or performance behavior where we're always on. And so that really is a component of what is widely known as the hustle culture, is this constant being on, always producing, always responding, always fixing, always building, always leading, always serving, always helping. And somehow, if we don't feel like we have, if we don't feel like we're doing something, then we're not doing enough. Where our identity is tied to what we do versus who we are. I don't know if I have any witnesses out there. If there's some witnesses out there, say I can relate. I've been there. Type in the chat. I have been in the position where being on was has been so much my norm that I don't know how to turn off. So in tonight's conversation, I really want to talk about some of the impact of that, because when you're always on and you've grown accustomed to being tired and exhausted, what we've done is deprioritize ourselves, deprioritized and devalued our identity outside of output and performance. And I really want us to shift into grace. So let me pause. Can you relate to that? Type it in the chat. I can relate, or I don't know what you're talking about. If you don't, I think that's wonderful. Then that means that you're already in a place of balance. But for the rest of us, we're trying to get to a point where we can figure out how to power down. We can re engage with self awareness and self care without feeling guilty. And we can find those pauses, those opportunities to reframe pausing and rest, and then get to a place where we're not always rehearsing what didn't I do, what needs to be done, who needs to who needs my attention and time, when a lot of times you need your attention and your time. Okay. So hyper responsiveness, hyperactivity, hyper accountability does not allow us to take a breath and pause. I want to show you something. Oh, we got some people relating. Yes, definitely. I can relate for sure. And you know, and I noticed that in a lot of our behavior, you know, Dion and Mom, where there's this creeping, it's almost like something's over our shoulder telling us that we've got to keep doing. We've got to where we feel guilty for just pausing and resting. But rest, because rest has been framed for us as a reward. We get to rest when we do this. What about we need to? rest? What about rest being a requirement? What about rest not just being a reward, but being a redirection, a recharge? So I thought about this scripture that says, what does it profit a man to gain the world and yet lose his soul? Now, I know that that scripture is generally tied to eternal life. That if that we can't take our worldly possessions, we're so focused on the tangible things, worldly achievements, worldly attainments, success, that we are willing to do anything to get to gain those things, and then take the risk of losing our souls. Well, I like to translate that. What if our soul is also means our well-being, our emotional and mental health, our physical health? Because nothing in this world can replace good health, mentally and physically. Nothing can replace some relationships that we should put higher value on. When we work so hard to achieve, when we work so hard or we're constantly on, we are putting at risk some of the primary tenets that God has given us to enjoy. Our bodies. God has given us our bodies. Our bodies are needed to succeed and to achieve anything or assignment that we want to do in life. But what does it profit a man to gain all the things that we are trying to work so hard to achieve and lose our ability physically to enjoy it? Have you ever met people who worked on a job 28, 25 to 35 years, and then a couple years, or sometimes sadly 1 year after retiring, I get reports that they've died? I personally know people in my life who worked 20 to 25 to 30 years in one job or in a job, only to retire and not even be able to enjoy their retirement. What profit was that? Because the one thing that you can't get back when we're laying on our bed of transition, if we're able to have some time to think, if we're facing the end, the one thing we're not going to want more of is more work. No one's going to say, I wish I had worked more. We may say, I wish I had worked more at a relationship. I wish I had worked harder to enjoy life, to breathe and to take a breath and to enjoy the moment, to stay in the moment with my family. I wish I had paid better attention to my body triggers and my trauma so that I could have better quality of life or extend my life. That's the conversation I want us to have. That's the revelation I want us to be able to get to. Why is that important for me now? It's because for the last couple of years, I've been dealing with some health issues that I now recognize have been tied to my body's response to always being on. Not all, but for the majority of them, there is medical and psychological connection between always being on and the impact to our bodies. I shared that information on one of the previous podcasts, but let me show you. Let me show you what I mean when I talk about this phenomenon about our bodies being on. Maybe you can join me in referring back to the podcast, but in case you didn't see that one, let me share with you where this diagram that I created. This is really interesting. When you start to look at all the information on how our bodies pay the cost, our bodies and our minds and our souls pay a cost. There's a hidden cost of the hustle culture: anxiety, digestive disorders, sleep disruption, fractured relationships. In one of my pieces of research, I even found that autoimmune disease, heart disease, migraine headaches, um, these are the things that are responding to this overworking, this overperformance, this overproductivity is doing in our lives. And the one thing I want you to hear is this very key word, balance. Because what I'm not saying at all is that we should not hold up our responsibilities, that we should not be working, that we should not be ambitious, that we should not um or that it's wrong to find ourselves being busy and grinding and doing whatever it takes to build, to provide, and to achieve. None of that is wrong. What I am saying is, to the extent that those things become our identity, that's where there is issue. And when that is the motivation, when performing is your identity, when tying what you do to who you are, it creates an imbalance and an altered state, which does cost. There is a consequence to that behavior, to our bodies, our minds, and our souls. Because anybody relate to some of this that the American Society on Anxiety says, what we do becomes who we are, when we have tied this dynamic between productivity anxiety and performance anxiety. So on the screen, you'll see this image of this person who is juggling so many things. I've been there. I was a mom. I am a mom, but I was a mother of four who were ages 3, 5, 8, and 16 when I got divorced. So I had 4 children between the ages of 3 to 16. And that this person, this woman in this screen was me. Career, pretty much a toddler at 3, a teenager who was trying to find his way, sneaking out the house and doing all kind of things, and then the 8-year-old who was involved in school events, the 5-year-old who's just getting started in school. Then I'm working, I'm grocery shopping, I'm washing dishes, I'm doing laundry, I'm going to the laundromat, I'm paying bills, I'm trying to figure out how to pay bills, I'm cooking. All of the things that we do as parents, yes. But what I didn't realize until I got in my, um, empty nester years is I didn't realize I had been mom for so long. I didn't know who Denise was, because I became a mom at 18 with Justin. And so I didn't know who Denise was. I was caught in this trapping of performance and productivity anxiety, where if you ask me who I was, the first thing I was going to say is I'm a mom. So I want to pause for a second and engage you. We're coming back over to our camera. I want to pause for a second to engage you. When people ask you who you are, how do you define yourself? And if you're on with us live tonight, just drop one word. Drop one word in the chat channel that describes who you are. And the real test is, can we define ourselves outside of what we do? Have we been so ingrained in the hustle culture, the titles we have, the roles we play, the things we do, that we don't understand our value, our worth, or our identity outside of that? So go ahead, take a test. Now join me in the test. What's one word if I ask you, so tell me, Tell me a little about a bit about yourself. Who are you? I had to think because I have to practice this. Because again, the first thing I'm going to say genuinely is the things that I do. I'll pause to see if anybody is willing to be brave enough to one word to describe who are you? How would you describe yourself? Now that you've heard me say it can't be a tie to what we do, you realize how difficult it is to describe that. So I'll throw one out there. Who am I? I am kind. I am funny. I am adventurous. Um, I was going to say patient, and that's not always true. Let's see if anybody has any responses. Who are you? Who are you? Yeah. Okay. See how difficult it is to not tie what we do to who we are. It's not to diminish all the things that we do. It's not to diminish the powerful achievements we have. I'm a woman, and in that regard, I know I've been that superwoman. I know I've been a superwoman. Now I played the superwoman role very well. Now, though, it's important for me to identify that it's important for me to be okay with reframing my life to the degree that I can also enjoy it with rest in grace. So let's make a quick shift and let me raise this point with you. Where has the hustle culture shown up most in your life? Has it been the cost to your body? Has it been the cost to relationship? Has it been the cost of work life or responsible life balance? There's been a cost. And I do think that even though it will take work, takes an intentionality, I think this can be reversed. Overthinker. Is that what you're describing yourself as, or are you saying that's where you've paid the cost? I'll pause. Yeah, because over being an overthinker is a symptom of hustle culture and definitely a cost impact for sure. So, in order for us I think course correct is a good word that I'd like to use, kind of shift out of autopilot into to G. We need to understand something. See, scripture says, "Come to me, all ye who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And then notice, this is Jesus speaking. He didn't say, after you do it all, after you fix it all, after you've earned it, I will give you rest. It says, those who are weary, those who are burdened, those who are heavy laden, come. And that's what that's the audience I'm talking to. Those that feel as though they have been on empty for so long. And I don't know how much um, road or life I have ahead, but I am determined with intentionality to shift out of this space so that I can take back some of the quality of life that I've given up at the cost of overperforming. Yeah. So I'm going to I want to share another screen grab here. Let me share this one with you. I want to share this quote with you that I found from this author. And it reads as thus. It says, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. This is a reminder of the necessity of rest and mental resets. Just like we reboot our electronic devices when they glitch, humans also need a deliberate pause to function properly again. I want to unpack that for a little bit. Humans also need a deliberate pause to reset when we glitch. Do you ever call with your internet modem? If you call your internet provider before they say, hey, I'm going to send out a technician to do a heavier diagnosis on the system, the first thing they're going to say is, did you turn it off? Give it a few seconds to reboot and then turn it back on. Well, that is exactly the shift that I want us to take from this hustle culture into grace. I am calling for a reboot. I'm calling for an unplug, a turn off for just a few minutes. So whoa. I'm not saying quit. I'm not saying turn in the resignations. I'm not saying turn off all things and all people or all relationships or obligations, I should say. I am saying for a few minutes, let's reframe pausing, reshape resting, and let's pause for a few minutes. Let's pause, because what I want us to pull the plug on is this inability to rest. That's the first thing we're going to unplug. The inability to rest is like living in this cognitive dissonance where on one hand, we know there's virtue in work, but there's equal virtue in resting. And I want us to value both. So I want us to unplug this theory, this mindset, this thought process that we cannot relax and rest. So we're going to unplug that. And what do I mean by unplugging that? It's unplugging that intense feeling of guilt or discomfort when you have downtime. We're unplugging that. We need to reset that. I do not want to continue to live in this intense guilt of discomfort during downtime. I deserve downtime. Say it with me. I deserve downtime. As if every free moment has to be filled with work, you need to unplug that. You got to reset that. Every moment does not have to be filled with something. And if you are dealing with guilt, maybe this is not everyone, but this is such a real phenomenon for me that if I'm only helping myself, great, but I hope it's helping somebody else. I need to pull the plug. And in fact, I'm not even plugging that one back in. When I plug back in, I have rebooted my thinking. And my new thought process is I deserve to relax and to rest without guilt. The other thing we're going to unplug is perfectionism that also creates procrastination and paralysis. Sometimes we think that we're naturally a procrastinator, but that's coming from a place of over anxiety and over performance. And we're so caught in, if I don't do it right, then I will fail. If I don't show up in a way that people are looking for, then I won't be accepted, or I will be denied or rejected. We're pulling that out. We're pulling that cord out of that wall, and we're going to reset that, because that's an obsessive need to be flawless. And that's not human. That is not reality. That is not, we weren't even made to be perfect. Okay? We're not made to be perfect. For every time we fail forward, we learn from and we leverage that. I love this quote by Nelson Mandela. It's a very simple quote, but very powerful in nature and in its dynamic. It says, I never lose. I always win. I either win or, let me rephrase it because I want to get it right. I never lose. I either win or I learn, which tells me there is no real failure. I'm either going to win at and achieve what I'm going after, or I'm going to learn from it. So we're going to pull the plug out of this paralysis of perfectionism, where we don't take action because we're too busy trying to get everything right or to be right. The other thing we're going to unplug and reboot is a comparison mindset, this constant comparison. And this is interesting. That shows up out of productivity and the hustle culture, where we're frequently measuring our progress, our success, who we are, our titles, what we've achieved, what we've done, what we earn, what we make against some other curated group. This is something that social media has had a negative impact on our generations behind us. This is something that marketing in America across the world has had a negative impact, because we are constantly being shown what beauty looks like, what wealth and success looks like, and so we find ourselves constantly comparing ourselves to some other curated group. We're pulling the plug on that. We're resetting that. Don't want to do that anymore. It also shows up, this comparison, constant comparison. I think it also shows up in our body image, or the way we view our bodies, this body dysmorphia. Um, it also shows up in how we spend our money. Trying to keep up with the Joneses is part of that comparison, that constant comparison. Always trying to fix the outer shell without even adjusting the inner shell. That's a whole nother conversation. And then the other thing I want to pull the plug on is this false urgency, this false sense of urgency, this sense of being unsafe, where if I'm not on, then I'm going to lose something. I cannot stress how important it is to reshape that thinking. That there's a lack of tolerance for us to have a slower pace in life, because we have to always be on. That hyper vigilance, that if I don't keep moving, something's going to catch up with me. These things that we're unplugging and resetting, they have created a cost so deep that in a lot of ways we don't even recognize the cost. I guarantee you, this was not the plan of God for your life. He never intended us to live in this space where we are always self-doubting, living in this unsafe, this space, feeling guilty for pausing and resting, and dealing with anxiety and the body cost with the body that he's given us to fulfill the promise that he's spoken over us and designed for our lives. We need alignment. We need new alignment so that we can truly achieve what he has in store for us. So let me decode some other things that I think it's important for us to unplug. First of all, this fear factor. If I'm not doing enough, then I will fail or be judged. That guilt into being busy. Overworking at the state of not resting. And the volume of things, having these to-do lists as guides are great, but if it's just to fill up the day because you don't know how to rest, yeah, we should be. It's okay to have a weekend doing almost nothing, which I know is not normal for us, or at least a Saturday. I mean, Lucy May could have gave us a Saturday. So, having gotten to this place where we recognize that things perform better after you re unplug it and reboot it, I want us to get to that better life, right? One of the reasons hustle culture is so powerful is not because it just controls our schedule and where we put our time. It's because it controls our ability to stop, to feel like it's okay to pause. So then what we do is we live life on burnout. We live life in exhaustion. We live life in quiet rejection, resentment, because we know we're on empty and we haven't unplugged so we can reboot, reset, refill what's missing. Rest is not a reward. Rest is a requirement. It is okay to power down. Our bodies were designed more like a computer system or a battery that needs to be recharged. Our bodies, our minds need to be recharged. So instead of saying I need to always be on, let's just start saying if I rest, I can do more. By resting, I can redirect. One of the one of the articles I read said that rest actually provides more clarity, higher quality of productivity. You can really move into a space where you're at your best, you're fully yourself, and you're able to give the people and the things that you're committed to the better parts of you when you allow yourself to take that healthy unplug, to reset, and to recharge. So, reframing rest is about looking at rest as recovery, not reward. And if you know you're in recovery, if I go through a surgery, the first place that the doctors are going to send me to after surgery before I come out is recovery. They're going to monitor my vitals. They're going to make sure that I come out that deep propofol sleep. They're going to make sure I come out of that well. I need us to shift into this place that says, rest is my place of recovery. How you rest is between you, your family, your loved ones, yourself, your God. But I just want you to know how important it is to allow yourself the ability to pause and to rest. When the brain rests, stress hormones decrease, focus improves, emotional regulation improves, and we're able to again give our best selves to what we're assigned to do. I believe that the scripture says in Psalms 23, He restores my soul. He restores my soul, I believe, is that spirit, soul, and body, man was created as a triune. So I believe the soul, that God is just as concerned about our soul, our mental health, our physical health, as he is about our spirits. And not just from a salvation perspective, because that's evident. He gave us his son, which is an amazing gift of to give us the amazing gift of salvation. But I do think we overlook oftentimes in theology the importance of he restores my soul. Also feels like, looks like, sounds like rest, recovery, and recharge. The ability to go before God with without guilt and to be able to redesign your life in a way that looks like balance is exactly the direction that I would love for this conversation to lead you to. You know, the Impact Experience podcast is a place where we'll have authentic conversations for people who find themselves in transition, in between chapters, I like to call it. Whatever that chapter is in your life. In this conversation, the chapter that we're in between is moving out of this constant hyperconnectivity and overvigilance of being on and performing into a place of grace. And in this conversation, you've heard me describe grace in a lot of ways as rest, recovery, renewal, restoration. And it's always in these conversations that I'm finding the intersection between spirit, soul, and strategy, the how. And so for me, I would love to hear, whether in this link, or if you're watching the replay, I would love to hear from you to say, Denise, through these conversations, I've identified something. I've identified a little bit more about my why, and I've tapped into what motivates me. And I'm also identifying some areas that I can shift and unplug and reset. If you're on the call, type it in now. I'd love to hear from you. If not, type it in during replay or go to my YouTube channel at DMC, the Impact Experience Podcast, where you'll find this full video, and type it in the comments. Let me know how this conversation has impacted you so that we can all find ourselves moving from one part of this journey into the journey that's still unfolding ahead of us. A life of better health, a life of better quality, better rest, without guilt, without fear, without anxiety. So, as I get ready to close, he said, Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health. That's absolutely true. As I get ready to close, I want to share that I'll be coming on live every Thursday. I feel like it's important for me to at least establish our audience, our framework for this podcast, and to make sure I have a more consistent engagement. And so every Thursday, I will be coming on live. At first, I said I was going to rotate those, but I really need to build momentum for this because it's super important to me that we are reaching. We are reaching people. You're passing on the information. We're sharing. We're directing people to the YouTube channel so that you can view what's there. It's because I want to make an impact. I want to make an impression that creates a lasting transformation. So every Thursday we'll be live. Now, what I want to take a little bit of a poll on, and you can drop me a note, drop me an IM, is the 6 o'clock hour Central Time a good time frame for you? Or should we kick that back just by 30 minutes to allow our Central Time zone folks and our West Coast time zone folks to be able to join us? I just don't want to be too late for the East Coasters. So let me know. We'll see what happens next week. I've got another upload, pre-recorded upload coming on YouTube channel this week. So I'll let you know here on Facebook when that goes up. Thank you for joining me tonight for the DMC Impact Experience podcast. I will look forward to seeing you weekly as we build momentum for these authentic, transformative conversations. And then I'll see where we go from there. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Be well.